Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now in today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I do as a funding analyst. So before I get into the video, let me just give you a bit of a background. I actually studied economics at university, and then after my undergrad, I went on to study a master's in finance and econometrics. And in year 2019, September, I started my grad role as an economic analyst for an engineering company. I was there for about a year and a half. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to move into finance. So I worked as a funding analyst for a mortgage lender for about 8 months. And then now I'm working as a Treasury analyst for a different mortgage lender. And I've been here for about 2 months. So yeah, just to give you a bit of a background. Now I'm going to talk about my role as a funding analyst in my previous company. To summarize the role of a funding analyst, so I was working for a mortgage lender. So I was working for a specialist mortgage lender, and specialist mortgage lender, what they tend to do, so the company I was working for and most mortgage lenders, they borrow money from bigger institutions or institutions that lend out a lot of money. So this institution could be like investment banks such as Barclays, JP Morgan, NatWest, and they also borrow money for from like private equity firms, investment management firms, and yeah, a whole lot of financial institutions that are ready to invest. But usually the biggest investors and the ones that they usually have huge deals with are investment banks. So mortgage lenders, they get this money, borrow this money from investment banks. The money they borrow from these investment banks, they then lend out to their customers. Now, these customers that these mortgage lenders lend to are usually customers with adverse credit. So customers that haven't got a good credit history, maybe because they've got CCJs, they've got bad debt. So these type of customers usually go to specialist mortgage lenders, because most, or if not all, high street or traditional banks will not lend to them. Therefore, these mortgage lenders tend to charge a much higher rate than your traditional banks, obviously because they're taking more risk in lending out to these customers with adverse credit. Now, as a funding analyst, I work within the Treasury team in this mortgage lending business. So I'm going to break my primary functions into three parts. So number one, the main thing is that I need to make sure that there's enough funding to fund all the loans that have been at offer, that we have enough cash to make sure we can fulfill all our obligations. So not only the loans that we need to that needs to complete within the month, but also loans that need to complete in the next 2, 3, 4 months down the line. So there's a lot of forecasting of a future demand as well. And at the same time, we want to make sure that it's sufficient demand to meet up with the funds that we've agreed that that we've accepted from these lenders. So in a nutshell, we just need to make sure there is enough funding, or there's enough cash to meet our funding capacity, essentially. Also, again, with funding, we want to make sure we borrow as cheaply as possible. So making sure we're always finding the best banks to borrow from, best investors to borrow from as well. And also refinancing different transactions to make sure we have a better deal. And yeah, so there's a lot of negotiations involved. I personally don't do the negotiations, obviously. This is just to give you an overview of what the Treasury team do as as a team. The second theme to my role is that I produce a lot of analytics around these mortgages. So I have this tape that I look at every morning that shows all the different loans that all the loans that are coming through into our application, all the loans that we've said, we've given an offer to, saying that yes, we will fund, and all the loans that have actually been funded, as in like the money has been sent to the solicitor. So we have this tape. So we need to, there are key things that we need to keep track of. So in order to make sure that we are compliant with our investors, because obviously the money that they've given us, we need to make sure that we're lending to the type of people or the type of profile that has been agreed with these investment banks and other financial institutions that are lending to us. So we produce all these analytics that we usually send to our investors so they can have a look at it and understand the performance, and also internally so we can understand the performance of our book. So this could be loan to value analysis, that this could be the overall the weighted average interest rate of the book, also the geographical concentration of the book. So there are different ways to split the book to understand the actual main features of these different loans. So there are different things we need to keep track of. So for example, we need to make sure that there isn't overly too many loans. For one of the contracts we have with one of the investment banks, we need to make sure that there can't be more than 50% of the loan book in London, for example. So these are the things we keep track of. So a lot of analytics are produced. This is usually through Excel, producing tables and looking at a lot of data, and also make sure the data I produce is actually accurate. So that's a lot of checking, looking at the cells, making sure the formulas link really well, making sure the the data integrity is there, that the data, I can actually trust the data, and comparing my results with maybe the finance team and the different things they produce. So yeah, there's a lot of analytics involved in that as well. And the third part of my role is maintaining relationships with these different financial institutions and any kind of external parties that are involved in the business of the investment banks and other financial institutions that lend to us, the rating agencies, because they rate our loan book as well. So we maintain a good relationship with them. So this means maybe providing all the documents that are necessary for them to either analyze our loan book, or to make sure, just providing all these external parties with the information that they need to do what they need to do, making sure that we're answering all their queries, ensuring that we're remaining compliant with the criteria and the contract, and essentially just keeping them happy and making sure everything is perfect. So that is part of my role. So this basically means answering the emails, keeping track of my emails, making sure all queries are answered quickly, making sure there's no mistake, and if a mistake is spotted or they raise something, it is rectified immediately. So that's essentially what that means. And so now I've given you kind of like a long overview. I'm gonna go into maybe a little bit more detail onto the daily tasks that I do. So I'm looking at my computer here because I have basically my CV where I've put a list of the things that I did while I was in that role. So I produce funding related analysis, like I mentioned, a lot of analytical reporting, and this could be used which is normally used for monthly board meetings, and this is also for internally as well, so for the different teams. So not only the Treasury and Finance team, but other teams, it could be important for other teams as well. It's important for other teams to understand the trends in our loan book as well. Assisting the director in producing slide decks. Yes, this I did a lot. So making sure PowerPoints look pretty and presentable. Guys, there's a lot of thought in this, and honestly, the director I was working with, he was amazing at producing slide decks and telling a story through images and making the story look interesting and not too many words in this, making sure there's not too many words in the slide, and making sure I've produced the graphs in a particular way, in a particular color. And yeah, I did a lot of that, which I enjoy and I think is really good. But the only part I don't enjoy is that sometimes it gets a little nitty gritty. Like there are things that I don't spot, like spaces and all these other things, formatting. It can get really like nitty gritty there. I can spend like maybe 3 hours just helping produce a slide, making sure I have all the data there, and then making sure the formatting is correct. So it can take some time. I don't do this every single day. Usually it could be maybe once every 2 weeks. It depends how often we need to produce these slide decks for investors and maybe other business opportunities. We might need to update slide decks and things like that. And also I love to say this, I was managing a £250 million forward flow facility. So I'm not gonna go into too much detail. I can do another video on this, but essentially I was in charge a bit. Well, the director was in charge, but I was actually actively managing a forward flow facility. So this is just literally an agreement between the mortgage lender and an investment bank on how much the investment bank will be lending to us. And obviously within that agreement, they've said, okay, these are the profiles you can lend to. So there's a contract with all the criteria that we must meet, and all the concentration limits we must not exceed. So I keep track of those things, essentially making sure the loans look good, making sure the loans are compliant, they all make sense, and send that reporting out weekly. So this is something I do, like, and essentially I look at this every day, every week, to provide all the reportings that's necessary. This was like my main task, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely update the liquidity report. The liquidity report is produced not only by me, like the finance team do a lot of work on it, the CFO does a lot of work on it, and I have a part to play in updating some of the numbers. So that I would do, usually start doing it from towards the end of the month / the beginning of the month. So yeah, that's something that's done every single month. That is very important. The board of directors look at that liquidity report. It tells them a lot of things about the business, how the loans are performing. So that is very important. Another thing I did was I coordinated a lot with the underwriting team. So the underwriters, they assess like each case that comes through. So when a customer applies for a loan with the mortgage lender, that, like, the underwriter is like the first phase. That's the first person they usually deal with when it comes to the business itself. So the underwriter underwrites the case, make sure it makes sense, make sure it meets the company's lending criteria. So I talk a lot with the underwriter, because maybe if I look at a loan that doesn't look right, maybe the LTV looks a bit off, or you know, just something is wrong with the loan, or some numbers are not making sense, or some details are missing, I talk to the underwriting team a lot of the time. Again, I coordinate with IT. Again, this is usually more or less every day or every other day. I talk to IT again, because they produce the tapes that are sent out, that I look at, that I do all my reporting from. Again, so this tape needs to be accurate. So if certain things are missing, the data doesn't look right, again, not only do I talk to the underwriting team, but sometimes it could be an IT issue or reporting issue. So I talk to the IT team, and how we can also improve how the data is presented. And yeah, and if certain things don't, like maybe certain logics are not working properly, again, I talk a lot with the IT team. So maybe they need to change the logic. And also a lot of treasury processes. I developed an operating manual. In Treasury, there are different processes, especially when you want to send out a specific report. Like the different types of reports that we produce, we send out to internal and external parties. So there are processes involved in that. And I produce those processes, like I write those processes down. So obviously, you know, when someone else comes on the team, or if I'm off, or whatever the case may be, it's very important to have those manuals there. It makes things clearer as well, not only because of that, but also for me, so I understand you know, what needs to be done, and there isn't any kind of confusion. And this was something I worked on basically every single day. I had also built a deal compare sheet. So again, this was an Excel where you had our different competitors. I looked at the different deals they've done, or they've produced within the last 5 years or so, like all the different deals they produce, the features of those deals, and how those deals are progressing, and, you know, producing charts and comparing them to business I was working for, comparing it to them as well. This was something, again, I was working on every other day to produce. It was like an ongoing task. I was also involved in building a rating model as well, which I really enjoyed doing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to finish it because I'd left the company then. But again, that was something that I was spending time doing towards the end, which was really interesting. And I was reading a lot of legal documents. Obviously, again, with this, if you're working within funding or within Treasury for a mortgage lender, yes, there will be legal documents you'll be reading a lot of. Again, not like a lawyer, not a crazy amount, but as you move, especially as you move up, you do need to become more familiar with them, because it has all the information for how to make sure, to make sure you're compliant and you're not your loan book is not exceeding or is not violating your agreements with the business, how you pay down investors. All of that information is in the legal documents. So I'm going to stop there because I feel like I've given a lot of information and I hope it all makes sense. Please, 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 if you have any questions or if you want me to do a separate video on certain things you've heard in this video, please do let me know. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.